24, where we drive your business. We are located at plot 42, Nile Avenue, Kampala, at the heart of the capital of Uganda. And definitely you will be able to find us here at Nile Avenue. And if you have any consultations that you would want to make, you can always pass by. Now, we are looking at the quarterly bulletin for this Capital Markets Authority. Now, what is the Capital Markets Authority? Once again, we are looking at the body or the organization that is in charge of supervision, first of all, education, secondly, and also regulating the space, the capital market space in Uganda. And these do so, of course, under the mandate of the government of Uganda. And they do so definitely to see that these markets are operated the way they are supposed to be, and definitely people don't get to lose money, and definitely also get into the laws and some of the things that need to be observed when, of course, operating within the space. Now, during the first quarter, we saw that we had growth in the collective investment schemes. That's the first quarter of 2022, from the month of January to the month of March. There was an increase of over 48%, by over 48% of the collective investment scheme. For starters, the collective investment scheme, or the unit trust, has been in existence for some time now in Uganda. And many people, especially during COVID-19 pandemic, were able to get to realize how important it is to save money on things that we use every day, to save money, and better to invest our savings. Now, the collective investment scheme just came in time when we needed it, because people needed an option for investing their savings. Business was down. The economy was down, and definitely people were home, and there were no jobs, there was nothing to earn, and people were wondering, how are we going to make money despite the fact that we are in the lockdown, we are stuck at home, no jobs, no money, no nothing. The collective investment scheme actually took advantage of this moment, and many people actually were able to wake up to it and started investing in this fund. This fund is a collection of assets that investors put together under a manager called the Collective Investment Scheme Manager, or the Fund Manager, or an asset manager. And these asset managers, or these fund managers, are licensed by still the same body, the Capital Markets Authority, to be able to bring together people's money. And because they have brought together people's funds, they're able to invest, especially in the financial markets, with, of course, education, with expertise that comes from people who are specifically specialized into investment advisors, people who have, of course, financial knowledge concerning investment, and are able to invest this money on behalf of their clients. Put it in a picture as this one. If I have 10 million and I would want to invest in a treasury bond worth, let me say we are looking at treasury bonds that are worth 100 billion, I will, maybe the interest rate is 20%, and I'm getting 10 million, because I'm investing 10 million, so 20% of that is 2 million. Now, if that is the interest I'm going to get, it's very good and wonderful, yes? But imagine another person with 20 million comes together, and another one with 30 million comes together, and also another one with 50 million, and you get the whole 100 million and invest this money at once. Guess what will happen? Because you have invested a big amount of money, the return is going to definitely be bigger. And when you're getting back money, for example, through the coupon rate in the treasury bonds, or through dividends, if you've bought shares in companies and have invested in the stock market, your interest rate or your returns are going to be much bigger. This is the beauty of the collective investment scheme. Just like the name, collective, it's a collection of funds, investments. They are investing those funds in a scheme, meaning a planned, a well-planned investment plan actually is going to be executed via using the unit trust fund manager. And this manager is licensed and definitely has qualifications to carry out his business. So they're not going to ruin your money. They are just going to make you actually get some return on your money. Now, these assets, as I've said, these schemes, or the collective investment schemes, were able to grow by over 47% in the first quarter of 2022 compared to the previous quarter of 2021, after we saw an accruement of about 1.5 trillion worth of collective investment scheme money that people had actually put aside to invest within these markets. Now, according to the quarterly bulletin released in the end of the month of June, that is the second quarter of the year 2022, the collective investment scheme managers had a total of 1.3 billion under assets under management, and at the end of June 22, representing a growth of 13.7% from the 1.146 billion, meaning, okay, this is 1,000 billion, not 1 point. In other words, it's 1.3 trillion. It's 1.303 trillion in assets under management at the end of June 2022, compared to 1.14, meaning these assets under management have gone up, and this is by over 13.7%. Growth within the second quarter compared to the first quarter. Now, this is very, very good news, and definitely we should keep seeing this growth. The previous quarter we had 1.14 trillion, and now in this quarter we are looking at 1.303 trillion. Now, on an annualized basis, the assets under management grew by 78.1%, from close to 731.9 billion recorded in a similar period in 2021. That is the second quarter 2021. From this 731.9 billion to over 1,303.7 billion. Now, this really deserves a great clap, because definitely this growth is significant, showing that people have moved away from savings that are in boxes and putting money aside under the bed to starting to invest in assets. And when you look at the total number of collective investment schemes accounts at the end of June 2022, there was 48,764 accounts compared to the 32,218 accounts at the end of the previous quarter, an increase of over 51.3.4%. This growth in the assets under management and clients can be attributed to the increased awareness about the benefits of investing in the collective investment scheme vehicles among local investors. Now, that graph there on your screen is showing you how much money has been going into the collective investment scheme since the second quarter of 2018 to the second quarter of 2022. Look at how beautiful that curve really looks like. We started from 118 billion in the second quarter of 2018 to over 121 billion in the third quarter of 2018, and the climb was steady. We're seeing 127, 156, 174, 218, 270. These are billions, of course, and then 389, and then 978 all the way in the fourth quarter of 2021, and up to the first quarter at 1.146 trillion, and now we are talking 1.304 trillion Ugandan shillings. Very wonderful performance there, and we hope the trend even goes much higher. Of course, awareness has increased, and through people watching shows like Financial Markets, definitely we are seeing these trends also go up because of that, because Smart24 TV has been the only channel in Uganda that has set aside time to make sure that they educate the public about investment, and they have dedicated this time for you and me to learn one simple lesson, that money can make you more money if you only study and get to know what it really takes. And definitely kudos also to the Capital Markets Authority for letting, of course, the business environment grow within this period. And of course, we are hoping even with better adjustment in the laws and, especially in the Capital Markets Authority Act, we will see even more activity and more investors come on board. Now, the table shows the breakdown, like we have seen, of the collective investment scheme and assets under management as per the collective investment scheme manager. And now let's take a look at this other table where we have the fund managers. We talked about assets under management, that is the amount of money that is looked at as the money that we are investing. Now, we are going to look at the table that shows the collective investment scheme managers that have been able to control the assets under management. Now, when you look at that table, I'll ask my producer to get me that table later on and put it on the screen. But when you look at this table, you have the top 2 CIS managers controlling 82% of the entire total assets under management at the end of the month of June 2022. Now, these asset managers, we're talking about UAP, Old Mutual Financial Services Limited, that has been able to manage over 745.9 billion, from 745.9 billion to over 865.6 billion in the month of June. So that's comparing the first quarter to the second quarter. And the change has been a 16%, meaning they have grown their assets by 16%. Then assets, ICA, Lion Asset Managers Management Limited, at 163.2 billion in the first quarter. That is ended in March 2022. Now they are handling over 177.6 billion within this second quarter ended in the month of June, and they have seen a growth of 8.8%. We have Britam Asset Managers Uganda Limited, who have also grown by 7% from handling over 188.2 billion to over 201.4 billion Ugandan shillings, and that's a 7% growth. Whereas the Zeno Technologies Uganda Limited have grown from 34.8 trillion, that is in March 2021, to 36.9 trillion, 9 billion, sorry, not trillion, billions in the second quarter, and that's a 6% growth. Now, the person that has registered the most growth within this second quarter has been Sanlam Investments East Africa Limited, after growing from 14.1 billion in the first quarter to over 22.3 billion within the second quarter, a 58.2% growth that has been registered within this period. And the totals there are giving you very clearly 1.14 trillion and 1.303 trillion respectively for the first and the second quarters, indicating a 13.7% growth. Now, that is a very significant performance indicator that definitely we are seeing that we are hoping for more and more of this that will happen. A breakdown of the assets under management for the asset allocation at the end of June 2022 indicates that the allocation of government of Uganda bonds took 69.4% of the total assets under management, followed by fixed deposits at 13.3%, and the corporate bonds took about 7.9%. This is indicative of a market dominated by the collective investment scheme funds that have interest-bearing instruments such as underlying assets, and an annualized trend analysis of the collective investment scheme assets allocation indicates corporate bonds as a percentage of the total assets under management has grown from 1.4% at the end of June 2021 to 7.9% at the end of June 2021. At the end of June 2021 to 1.6% at the end of June 2022. The growth in the amount of cash held is driven by the need to increase the liquidity buffers of the collective investment scheme managers, as well to meet the redemption requests as the number of collective investment scheme account holders also increases. Very wonderful figures right there, and definitely when we look at the allocation, that now gives you the quarterly collective investment scheme industry asset allocation or percentage. And this asset allocation looks at where this money is going. Where is this money being invested? We're seeing that government bonds have taken the biggest percentage of these investments, with this second quarter. When you look at last year, 2021, they took 67.4%. In September of last year, they took 66.2%. And then when you look at March 2021, I think this is supposed to be 2022, you have 72.8% and 69.4% there on the collective investment scheme. And the corporate bonds, when you look at the corporate bonds, commercial paper, and treasury bills, call deposits, fixed deposits, you can still see a growing investment trend. Other investments, offshore and foreign exchange, you're seeing still a little bit of increase there on their investments. And then the listed equities in Uganda, you're seeing that the investment has, however, gone down depending on how the stocks have performed. I think mostly the collective investment schemes have not done much there. We also have the call deposits that we have seen, and then the cash, and that is from 1.5 to over 2.4% of the investments. And this, of course, summarizes those investments where the money has been allocated. You can see the financial markets are taking lead. Government bonds, fixed deposits, treasury bills, all these are financial markets instruments. And so definitely they are very one of the first things that we are looking at when it comes to investments, especially in the collective investment schemes. Now, the total assets under management for fund managers licensed by the Capital Markets Authority closed the second quarter of 2022 with 3.89 trillion, representing a growth of 0.7% from 3.87 trillion at the end of March 2022. The increase in the assets under management can be attributed to, among other things, the gain in the value of the assets held, and on annualized basis, the assets under management fell by 2.8%, however, from 4.01 trillion recorded in the similar period in 2021, the second quarter. And the decrease in the assets under management can be partially attributed to the withdrawal of funds from two fund managers, that is Sanlam Investments East Africa Limited and Britam Asset Managers Uganda, by one of the schemes whose funds were being managed there. And when you look at the last graph here, we're looking at the quarterly trends in assets under management for fund managers. And there's been a slight decrease there, however, but nothing really to worry much about when it comes to at least the growth in the collective investment scheme. Now, the top three fund managers who controlled 82.4% of the total assets under management were Sanlam Investments, that is Sanlam Investments East Africa. There was Gen Afric Asset Managers Uganda Limited, as well as Britam Asset Managers, and UAP Old Mutual came in the 4th place, while ICA Lion Asset Managers came in the 5th place, and Zeno Investments came in the 6th place. And a breakdown of the assets under management by asset allocation at the end of June 22 indicates that investments in the Uganda bonds constituted 75.2% of the total assets under management, followed by fixed deposits at 6.3%. And then you're seeing listed equities in the East African region within 5.7% of annualized results. And then an annualized trend analysis of the asset allocation indicates that the investments in the assets at the collective investment schemes have grown from 1.4% to over 3.4%. And that, of course, is it from the collective investment scheme. You can be able to invest also by getting in touch with some of these asset managers. We've had some of them on the show and they will definitely return. But if you want to get to invest in one of these schemes, you still need your identification and your money. That's all you need to get started. Instead of putting money in a box, honestly, instead of saving with your friend who is helping you keep your money, but they're not growing that money, put it in an investment scheme and let it grow your money with time, so you can enjoy some return on your savings. We're going to take another very quick breather. When we return, we look at further into the quarterly bulletin, what else we had, and also the stock market performance. Stay with us, we'll be right back.